I'm Monica Ward, and this is my project on gentrification, self-destructive segregation. Today I'm interviewing a Seattle resident, Tina Bunn, who also worked for the YWCA Impoverished Project for Homeless Women in the Seattle area.
Thank you, Monica. Glad to be here this evening. I remember I moved here in 2007, and Seattle was a great city. It seemed like it offered a lot of equal opportunity. Everybody seemed to get along well, and it was just a vibrant sense of community. But over the last 3 or 4 years in Seattle, corporate giants like Facebook, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft have all issued in this program of gentrification. Now, true enough, it's brought more jobs to some people, but there's still a portion of the population in the Seattle area that's been hit really hard. Almost 12% of the people in the Seattle area still don't have homes or jobs, or even though the wages of 15 an hour have been instituted in Seattle, that's still not enough income for decent housing. Seattle's a great city, but now it's also a city with lots of structural problems, mainly homelessness because of gentrification. I ended up working for the YWCA as a person that would help find homeless and impoverished women housing, because at $8 an hour as a sales clerk or some other low income wage job, they weren't able to find housing. So the YWCA brought up a few buildings to make sure that some of the residents of Seattle were able to have some sort of housing, some sort of co-op, or some kind of studio, or maybe even a dorm-like setting. Seattle's poverty now has risen just because of all the corporate and tech giants that have moved here. It has this subculture where you see now the drug addiction and street peddlers trying to sell their goods. One of the massive gentrification projects that's underway starting in late 2019 will be something called the First Light.
That veil.
Oh,
That's
okay.
going to cover the lower exterior of the building. He's also doing black sculptures throughout, like the Seabird Garden.
And the problem with that is that the homeless and low income housing project that the YWCA for women and low income people lived in is going to be taken over by this project called the First Light. Architect James K.M. Chang is going to come in and build this structure that'll take up the whole block. The apartments in that structure will start at $2 million. And as you know, most people can't even afford something for $200,000. It's one of the buildings that's going to be just architecturally magnificent, but it won't involve any low or middle income people. So this project is going to relocate or dislocate hundreds of families and low income people. I remember when I first got here in 2007, even though the people were in some sort of low income housing, there wasn't all this gentrification and drug addiction. It's not that everything that's being gentrified is totally wrong, it's that some of the attributes that come with it. When people are displaced and dislocated, they feel disassociated. So now you have a culture where crime has increased. You have a culture where people feel like they don't have access to community or grocery stores because they've built this culture of the rich and have left other people, low income and middle income, behind. They've taken away resources like small clinics and small grocery stores and even clothing stores and some jobs because not everybody has high tech skills. So as gentrification has moved in, you just have this subculture of poverty and hopelessness. So what do we do about it? That's the main thing we got to think about as a society. Because you can't have a country that leaves 50% or even 75% of its people behind with no hope. You have this hopelessness across America. You can't just have these tech companies and coffee shops and call yourself a country when people are feeling dislocated and disassociated. We have to do something to change that. I recently went to a forum on what we should do about gentrification and homelessness in America with the Bill Gates Foundation. I'll get into that in a second.
And just looking at the homelessness on Third Avenue, you see how the city has deteriorated and how homeless people are wandering around aimlessly. Um, where are these people supposed to go? You have $200 million apartment buildings, and they obviously can't afford them. So you can see how the city is trying to push them out. You can see how the city wants them to basically just die off and go extinct.
It's a tough place to live. And also the drug addiction problem has spiraled. And that's probably due to gentrification and not being able to afford any housing.
What's the experience now when you go downtown?
Well, due to gentrification, downtown Seattle, like so many other cities, has deteriorated. I mean, you have this one part of society that can afford Cartier and Rolex and all the other fineries of life. But then you have this other part of society that's down there talking to themselves and begging you for a dime and begging you, where can I get my next drug fix? And all it does is deteriorate the city. And so then they come in and they take what the little bit they have, they take it away. I mean, you can't have a society where you have Barney's on one corner and somebody begging for a sandwich on another. What kind of society do we want? Someone asked me about Seattle a year ago. They had visited here and they had said, why do you have so many people homeless and laying around and doing heroin and fentanyl?